Good afternoon, Miss Young here again. I'm going to take you through another correcting the pseudocode type question. This is question 7 from June of 2024, paper 2022. And so you will, if you remember from my other videos that I've done on this, if you want to check out the card, we talked about a number of different things that we looked at. For example, we talked about matching pairs. So for example, for and next and while and end while, for example. So those were the things to look out for. We then talked about patterns, looking for patterns and seeing if there was any difference in the patterns. Then we talked about variable mismatch, and then we talked about in this case there's always a few that are very specific, and then we have logic errors, which are always the harder ones to identify. So let's look at this question. An algorithm is written in pseudocode to find and display the max and min values in an array of 1,000 positive numbers. The array list starts at index 1. So we should know what a max and min algorithm looks like. So this should be a relatively straightforward question, but let's follow it through. So we're looking for things like for. So we have a for and a next, that matches. We have an if and we have an end if, so that matches. And then we have an if and an end while. So whether we're looking actually at patterns or whether we're looking at what I call matching pairs, this one stands out. So if, end if, there should be if and end if here. So we have a problem on line 11, which we change end while to end if. So that's the first one. So do we have any other? No, we've gone through our matching pairs. Let's now look again for patterns. So max is list I, min is list I. Well, we know that for when we have an array that we set the maximum min to be the first item in the array. So there's nothing wrong here. Then we have this loop, and then we have if lists counter, then max list counter, and if list counts, and then list counter. So again, actually, either whether you look at this as a pattern or as a variable mismatch, you can see counter and counter, counter and count. So we can see whether we're looking at this as a repeating pattern or whether we look at this as a variable mismatch. We can see that count is wrong here, so we can say there's a problem on line 8 and we need to change count to counter. So we've dealt with patterns. Now again, this is an odd question because these work on both ways. So if you follow this methodically, then patterns and logic errors will actually help you in here again, because we then think, well, realistically, we're down to logic errors. So let's look at this. We have if the list counter is less than max, then we want to set the max value. So wait a minute. And then we have if it's less than min, then we want to set the min. Well, these can't both be true, because we want to set the max. If this number is greater than the max, then we want to set the max, and if this number is greater than the min, then we want to set the min. So this is actually correct, and the logic here is that that should be a greater than. So I don't have enough space because I wanted to try and fit this on the screen so you could see, but we have line 4, and we should change line 4, change the less than to greater than. And so those are the three. But again, we are getting down to logic errors. It becomes difficult. If we follow this pattern, 2 of those 3 were very straightforward to find. And so hopefully that will give you a little bit more insight into how these questions can be answered or logically thought through. And I'm Miss Young, and I'll speak to you later.